Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China. Hello everyone, I'm Matthew David, the founder of Dashi Consulting, a China market research company based in Beijing initially, and then we opened in Shanghai and in Hong Kong, and it's podcast, China Paradigm. And today I'm with Benjamin Kleis. Did I pronounce correctly? Kleis, sorry. I asked you before and I couldn't pronounce clearly. So thank you very much for being with us. You are the founder of two companies, actually more companies, but you are currently managing two companies you funded, which is Lihaoma. So Li like Li Wu, the gift, and Homa, Lihaoma, how are you? And QRzebra, a business based on QR code and how to actually interact with offline to bring people online and offline, and vice versa. I think when I read what you do, I felt it was a big opportunity. I felt QR code was much bigger than what I was thinking, actually, because you can send people to anything through a QR code. And I realized how flexible a QR code and dynamic QR code can be. So thank you very much for being with us. You have funded respectively Lihaoma for 4 years and a half, and QRzebra, it's actually quite recent, only 1 year and 1 month, if my information is correct. So what about the size now of those two companies? I'll always begin with this question.
So maybe it's interesting to answer, of course. Lihaoma was my first real tech startup that I did, and it was a startup that started with an application where the concept was that people could, by playing little games, win some gifts of a brand and have a first experience with the brand. So Lihaoma was kind of an engagement platform that we at first started through an application. Later on, we pivoted it with the same concept, where you can make a little game in an H5 format and play a little game online, and with the same concept, engage the user, incentivize the user by winning a gift and let them win by different small little games that are quite easy to play. And that was the thing that was successful. We did a few campaigns with Nestle, for example, and had other campaigns too. So it's a formula that worked, but of course, doing a business like this in China, as being a non-Chinese, made me realize that there are a few boundaries. If you make such concept and you want to approach bigger Chinese corporates, it's not an easy thing. So that was the first thing that I realized when I did Lihaoma. It's a thing where you need to go out, approach brands, make them understand you, and try to work with them. So going with Lihaoma, that was the first startup where I, in fact, learned everything about A, running a business, and B, finding a model that people want to pay for. And that's, in fact, what brought me to the second company, because in Lihaoma, we were busy with QR codes. And then I came to the second company, which was, in fact, first a side company. It's called QRzebra, or its Chinese version is called Bama. So we run it in China, which is it is the same version, but only for China, and we run it worldwide. The different thing with QRzebra is that the business model is a little bit different. People buy online, they come on our system, they go through a whole flow, and they get by doing it, they say, hey, I need, for example, to make dynamic QR codes. I will specify that later. And they purchase our software as a service online and do everything themselves. This is a very interesting model because it allows me to be anywhere, right, with my team. And also our team works also worldwide. So we have a team that is not only locked on one location. Of course, in China, we have a team that is based there. But it gives us a little bit more freedom in the way we do things. Of course, it doesn't mean that we don't need to work. We need to work very hard. We need to work 24 hours, in fact, because, for example, people buy from New Zealand to the United States. So it means people are asking and sending emails at any time of the day, and we need to answer those emails as quick as possible, of course. So it's a thing that went really well. And maybe later I can explain a little bit about QR codes, why it became such a formula.
Yeah, we like to begin with a question in the podcast with the size of the business. Can be number of clients, can be revenues, can be size of the team. Okay. Could you give a sense of those two companies so people can project more themselves in what you do and better understand at what stage you are in terms of development?
Okay, so if we talk about Lihaoma, the team is about like 4 people. QRzebra, we are about right now 6 people. So that's
Okay, so a
about
total of 10, sorry. Are they working together in the same offices or is it separate?
yes. We
Okay.
work in the same offices. We work together because they're different business scopes, but in kind of a way we do collaborate. Yes, of course, because sometimes there are clients that request both. There are sometimes clients that request one. Sometimes it depends. But again, it's a very different business scope. Lihaoma is outreaching, where QRzebra is more a search engine optimization SEO game where people will find you online and come to you in that way. Content marketing, right?
So you mean to acquire your own client, right? You acquire more from content marketing. Is what you say?
Well, yes, with QRzebra, we acquire most clients from Google or from Baidu.
Okay.
From those platforms. That's our, let's say, main channel for QRzebra.
I see.
Where Lihaoma is more like content marketing, emails, reaching out to big brands, telling them what we do. And of course, there are 2 hot topics, right? Engagement is something that every brand wants to have. QR codes is also something that every brand needs. So that's these kind of 2 things work well together, right?
Would you mind we talk about the beginning to start, so we get a better understanding of how it started? You are not a tech person. You are an architect, right? And you started 2 businesses which are tech heavy, I mean tech related at least, and you need developers, or you need to have developer in your team, or to know a bit coding, at least to have a bit of knowledge, to have the idea of building those businesses. So can you tell us more about the beginning and how you started?
Sure. So yes, I'm an architect. I worked on really big scale projects like, CCTV building in Beijing, in top architecture companies. If you work in such companies, you will work very hard. Yeah. So it's like working in a startup. And it's also, you need to be, perfect, right? It's not no place for mistake if you work in this kind of projects. Doing a tech company and an architecture company are not so different, right? It's also about, I always compare it like this. An architect cannot put 2 bricks together, but he knows how to make a building with those bricks, right? So he can conceptualize a building. That's the same thing when you do IT. I know what a backend developer knows. I know what a front-end developer can do. I know what all those people can do. And it's about coordinating them, seeing that we have a vision, same like when you make a building, making that there is a vision, and in the end, doing good product management, right? So having a team that is motivated and managing them in a way that they, in the end of the day, it gets reality. So it becomes something that is real. The different thing is with tech, in 1 year, you can make a company from 0 to hero, like what I did with QRzebra. And with architecture, it can take 3-4 years before, or even 8 years before a building stands there. And maybe even because of the market changes, that the building never get built. So it's a very different speed of doing things. But from way of thinking, it's very similar. It's not so different. Yes, you need to understand what you talk about, but still, you don't need to be the guy that put the bricks together, right? That's it.
And initially, you started another company which was Nono Muaks. A few words about it so we understand the very start of your entrepreneurship journey.
Okay, so I came out of architecture doing really big scale projects in Asia, Europe, and I wanted to have something small scale again. I was just tired of working in these big corporate architecture companies, running big things. And that's where I started Nono Muaks. Nono Muaks was a kind of concept where we made small little things, also with engagements, where people had, like little things like glasses and all this kind of stuff that was pretty engaging. And we just sold it in design stores. And then suddenly the bigger brands came to us, like Red Bull, Bacardi came to us, H&M came to us to say, hey, we like these things. We want them, that you make them for us and brand them. And that's a little bit how I understood the power of marketing and also the budgets that were behind those kind of things, how brands were looking for solutions for engaging people and getting attention. Because of course you put some glasses on, you take a selfie. We're just coming in the time where selfies became big. So this was something that, and even today, this would be still contemporary, right? So these are things that never gonna go away. We are to that level, still busy trying to engage and do something fun and engage people and make it, give that's what I said. Our glasses have what we call a picture value. And when there's a value for a picture, that's the reason that people take pictures. And if there's a brand on it, then there you go, right? So also maybe very interesting to say, when I was working as an architect, my wife, who's Chinese, who's partner of 2x4.org, a graphic design company who's doing branding for all the big brands, Prada. It's also a little bit the thing that made me touch bigger brands. As an architect, you don't touch big brands, but as working in this kind of industry made me understand new things, and also made me understand how business works, because I was an architect. I had zero understanding of running a business. I had no clue of doing those things. And by doing those things like Nono Muaks, Lihaoma at first, learned me the hard way, because it's not an easy way, to how to run a business and how to make profit, right? So this was the thing that I learned through my way, coming from an architect to where I am today.
Yeah, I am on your LinkedIn profile, and I'm seeing actually some of the glasses of Nono Muaks were very designed, very fancy glasses. Where did you sell those glasses? How did H&M, it's H&M, yeah, Red Bull, Heineken, Bacardi? Where did they find you?
Well, we started to sell in design stores in Beijing. I think we sold over 10 or 20 design stores in Beijing and Shanghai too. So it was not only Beijing. Also, we were online. We sold on Taobao, yeah, the Chinese platform. So these glasses went around, and it was something that also it was Weibo was very hot at the time. So when people had those glasses, they added us on Weibo. It was also one of our marketing strategies, right? So if you have your glasses, add us on Weibo. So everybody was doing it. You had all those faces with all those glasses. So it was something that really worked pretty cool. And it was also a very interesting product to work with. We also had our own laser cutters. Because I'm an architect, I could draw in AutoCAD, which is a vectorial program. And then you could laser cut your own glasses and all this kind of stuff. So it was something really, where I did my passion, creating, designing, making new things. And that's, I still think, my passion today. Helping people in doing interesting things by creativity.
I feel like there is a lot to do with the economy or the business of selfie. I mean, I feel there are coffee shops based on selfie. There are places based on selfie for people to go there and take selfie together. But you decided to stop it in March 2015. Would you mind sharing a bit of the reasons why?
So when we stopped Nono Muaks, of course, when you make glasses, it's a very labor-intensive product. You need to produce them somewhere, right? And that's what I would call the production nightmare. Anybody that produces products knows very well when you produce something, but so many things can go wrong. You send it to a factory in Hebei, for example, around Beijing. Then you come there, and in the top of the boxes, everything looks fine, but you dig a bit deeper, and you realize that down there, it's not so fine anymore. And that you have strict deadlines to send this again to clients. So it's something that, there were always a lot of new stresses coming along. And that's also one of the reasons we have our own laser cutters in a certain moment and made our own things, because controlling the whole production chain was the best option for us. We realized outsourcing was not cheaper, was in fact more nightmare than. So in one moment I said, they were called Kick Eyes. So Kick Eyes glasses went to the top, a moment, started to go down, was less interest in it, and then I said it's a good moment to stop. I still have my laser cutters, but I mean, it was a moment where I realized that's something interesting, new. I had a new concept, told a friend, and Lihaoma was born.
A few weeks after, you officially started Lihaoma. So let's talk more about Lihaoma from a technical perspective. As far as I understand, you are selling H5 website and they are games. So those websites are games. So you sell actually in an URL where people change a little bit the content of the game, and they can link it embed with their own website or with their app maybe, or within their WeChat or mini program. Could you tell us more? First, correct me if I was incorrect. And then could you tell us more about what's behind it and what do we buy when we are a client of Lihaoma?
Okay, Lihaoma is what I would consider a game generator. So not a QR generator, but a game generator. You plug in all your images, your personal content. You customize the game to making it look like it's your game. You can do that in 5 minutes by plugging everything in, and then you will get as a result a URL and a QR code. And the QR code, that's because we are, of course, in WeChat. We made our whole system work on WeChat.
Only WeChat?
Only WeChat, because we require you to log in. So like this, we also know who's playing the game, right? This was before the mini games came out, right? So after WeChat came with mini games, it was of course a different competitor to us. But in the end, we are still quicker because we can set up your content in 5 minutes, where a mini game will take maybe a month or more to develop, depending of. So, but of course, the mini games of WeChat looks a little bit more integrated, where what we do looks still like an H5. It's an H5 page that's open with a game. But like I said, we have done it with many different brands, and it was something that worked well. Maybe my goal is later on to bring Lihaoma also outside China. That's also something I consider. I see the opportunity as a game generator to be successful outside China too. It's a concept that is not only related to China. People do love play games, of course, in China. But lately, people play games everywhere in the world, right? It's not something that is only linked to China. I did it because I was in China, and I'm still in China. That's why I'm not in China.
An innovation we can bring from China to the world is the other way around now. I think it may not be very clear for everyone listening to us about what kind of game we're talking about. Is it a game of a lottery? Is it a game where you play with others? Is it a game? How can you generate so many games easily where the world of games is infinite? So I believe you have some types of games. People will just upload their own picture. Can you be more specific about the types of games you have?
Okay, so we have different type of games depending on what we want to get from the user. For example, it could be a question-answer game, where it's very like a Trivial Pursuit kind of concept. And when you win, you go to the next thing. Could be like a kind of a roulette. And then, for example, if you scan, you win 30%, and your friend who plays the game will win, for example, 20%, and another friend will only win 10%. So we make the whole even winning engaging. So we made different games for different solutions for different kind of customers. Some customers are looking for games to convert user into a sale. Other brands are more looking to create brand awareness, and those kind of games then are maybe better when there is a question where they need to find the answer somewhere. So there are different type of games we make. There's also this kind of games with the 3 cups, a little ball that falls or anything. It's switch, and where is it? So some games are like based on luck. Some games you will always win. Some games you need to think a little bit. It's all these kind of games were tested with the psychology of a person. How can we convert you in what we want you to do in the end of the day, right? That's what's the whole.
How many formats do you have? So you have a quiz, you have a lottery.
We have eight different games right now.
8. Online. I see.
And we develop on regular basis new games. Depends on mostly it comes with a client who wants something new, and then we make a new game and we push it into it.
How much time does it take to develop a new game?
Oh, it depends. It can take 1 or 2 months. It depends of the complexity, of course. Like I say, it is not always very easy to develop these kind of things. People think it's easy. There's a lot of things that you need to do. It's not only developing it. You need to test it for a good period. You need to test it on different devices. You need to make sure that it works. And then there's still many thousands of surprises that come when you develop games.
I imagine the API of WeChat can change as well, and they may forbid things which were working before.
WeChat, I can write a book about it, how terrible these kind of things are sometimes when you are in the point of a developer, right? So it's
Tell us more. Could you share some examples of the nightmare of developing a mini program or games with WeChat?
Well, maybe let's go to QRzebra and talk about a few examples. I just had last week an interesting example with QRzebra, for example, where WeChat blocked us.
I see.
So we make QR codes where people can upload a file. So it could be an image when people scan, could be anything. Of course, it didn't take long before a bunch of spammers came to our platform to upload images to let people, add a WeChat account and then sell some illegal stuff, right? So the first thing that happens is that WeChat will block you instantly. They block your whole website. They block your domain. But that means not one of our customers could use WeChat because everybody scans with WeChat scans characters with WeChat in these. So then you need to figure out a very quick solution where you can figure out how can we solve this in less than a day by finding a rule that makes it work. So then I told my tech team, block those features for now, so no one user can use it. And then I told my sales and marketing team, I said, look, if anybody comes to you and they want to use those features, they need, like every tech platform does in China, show their ID, a picture of them holding their ID. Yeah, that's how you need to do it. And if that's cool, then of course we give them access, because then at least we know who they are, right? Because that was the biggest problem. Those spammers who wanted to abuse our system, you don't know who they are, they don't care. And of course, they never have given their ID to us, right? So it's something that it's a measurement that you need to take in 5 seconds, where you quickly need to think of a solution that can work sustainable without turning over your whole website, right? It needs to be something that comes from the back end, quickly solved, and then it was done, and it's a sustainable solution. But that just shows in China, whenever you develop something, for whatever reason, you can get blocked, and you need to quickly understand why. And if you already are so happy that you know why, because WeChat told us why, then of course you can solve it. But let's say that you don't even know it, right? Then you need to start to do what we call debugging and try to figure out what all the processes that might be the thing that makes you get blocked, right? I think any big company in China has been through that nightmare already. It's something that is, of course, for a company not fun, because you have many customers who complain, but it's part of the game. If you're in China, this will never happen with QRzebra outside China, right? Outside China, nobody ever will block you to that level. But inside China, you need to comply with the rules of WeChat, and WeChat complies with the rules of the government. So it's this kind of game where you're in between, right?
So I got that you changed the way you onboard clients with their ID and so on, but I didn't get how you got your website unblocked from WeChat. Did you show them that you implement new rules and then they accepted and then they unblock it?
Yeah, so we for the onboarding, we only block certain features. So users still can use our whole platform apart from those features that are the one that users will abuse. Yes, there is a process on WeChat. When you get blocked, then you will see on WeChat a page that says you're blocked, and then you need to click apply for access. You need to give your ID card again, and then they will recheck you. But we also send an email to WeChat. So we work on that moment. We have like what we call an emergency plan, different sets, like you do this, you do that, make sure this comes. And if you communicate well, then it can go very quick. WeChat normally is not such a company that answers too quickly to your emails. They don't care. But in my case, they did care and they did answer. So it was something that was solved pretty quick for the situation we were in, right? So that's, yeah.
So what's good transition for QRzebra, even though we may come back to Lihaoma, because I feel there's a couple of things I'd like to understand better from Lihaoma. So QRzebra, you are selling dynamic QR code that went on your website with a monthly basis. You're a SaaS business. So it's a subscription. You pay monthly, could be $7 up to $36. And the differences you have between the different offers is the number of dynamic QR code you can use per year. I feel it's actually the main difference. But after that, you can track what people do with your QR code, where they scan, how many times they scan, and you can change what the QR code is linked to. Again, if I understood correctly about what you do. But
I will explain.
Okay, we'll listen to your explanation. And the best would be to have explanation with some specific cases, so it's very clear in our mind what use we can get from what service we can get from QRzebra.
Okay, cool. So first, it's important to understand there is what we call Lihaoma, which is for China, and it's QRzebra for the rest of the world. Very important to understand, because some things on outside of China will not work inside of China, or the way around. So, and a second thing to understand is what we call a static QR code and a dynamic QR code. A static QR code, you can come on our platform, you can make it for free. We don't charge you. You can tailor your QR code, you can customize it to something that looks more appealing. Like I always say, QR codes look more ugly than a barcode. On our platform, you can make it something personal, branded, right? That's the first thing.
With logo inside, to make it more visual for people. The logo inside, so you can see whatever company you work with. I feel I saw some auto company like BMW or whatever. You can have the logo inside.
So the difference between a static and a dynamic QR code is the following. A static QR code goes straight to your website. A dynamic QR code goes first to a short URL that tracks data, and then to your website. With a dynamic QR code, this is what many people don't know. If you print already your QR code and you still want to change the last link, to your website, you can change it anytime, whenever you want. So when you have printed 10,000 flyers and you say, I still want to change it, then you can change that. So we only charge customers for dynamic QR codes, the ones where you can track data and the one that you can edit in the end. And then there's a very other thing that we just made, and that's a very interesting thing. We also made what we call a multi-URL QR code. A multi-URL QR code, mostly QR code, it goes to one link, right? We made a QR code that allows you, depending on your location, so if you're in Beijing or you're in Shanghai or in Hong Kong, you will go to a different URL. So we know when you scan your location, and then we will redirect you to a different thing. Very interesting if you're on
How precise it can
packaging.
be? Can you be precise as a level of a district or of a city?
On a city level.
City
on
level.
A city level. On a city level. Why is that? There is, of course, there can always be a little, for example, if you're just outside of Beijing, it might be on a 4G connection that will go through Beijing. So then we think you're in Beijing, right? So it's not what I would call, it's like 90% precise, right? So, but on a country level, it will always work. On a city level, it might have a little bit, depending where you are. If you're in the center of Shanghai, no problem. But if you're a little bit on the boundary of Shanghai, it might be a bit different, right? So
I understand.
It depends of how the operator, your 4G operator, redirects you to which internet distributor, right? So it depends on that.
So to summarize what you just said, I scan the QR code. It's sending to, let's say, a shorter or intermediary link, which is where you track the data. Based on the data you collect, you know the location. You may know a little bit more. What can you know more? That's something you can tell us. And then it's redirecting to what the person who paid for the QR code wants to show. Can be a picture, can be a video, can be another website, can be maybe a payment terminal to put then a credit card, whatever.
Exactly.
What can you get on top of the location?
So we track the time of the scan, the amount of scans, and we track also the device type. So we know if it's an iPhone or an Android, so that we know too. And we know the location, right? So there's kind of 4 things we know when you scan a QR code. So that makes you, for example, if you do some advertising, you know that in Chongqing, nobody's scanning, and that in, for example, Beijing, everybody's scanning, so that you need to do better marketing. Another important thing to mention with QR codes, that's a mistake that I see every brand make. You need to put a call for action with your QR code, yeah? When you have a QR code and you say scan and win or scan and do this, people read, they scan. If you don't put that with your QR code, people are indifferent. They look at it and they say, yeah, what is this about, right? So it's really important to put a call for action. I see so many brands making that mistake.
Where do you write the call to action?
For example, a scan for action could be just scan me or scan and win, right? It's incentivizing people, right? It's still a QR code. It's nothing else than a digital gateway on a packaging or on a paper. And it gives a digital dimension to your product. So it's a very important thing that people scan. You know more information about the consumer, right?
But
so
do you write the call to action in the QR code, or it's outside the QR code?
We put it mostly under. Sometimes we don't even put a logo in the middle anymore. We put, that's the thing with the QR code. You can cover some part of the QR code. It doesn't need to be in the center. You can also cover a little corner and put a little man there or another thing. You can be very creative with QR codes. People use it because they look at other brands, how they do it, and they copy it, right? Nobody really thinks when they do it. That's where we do think when we do it. We start to realize there are much more powerful ways. And then it can be a little text balloon that says, scan me, right? Or something like that, that makes people getting a visual ID. They can read text, and that's when they will 8 to 80% more scans. That's kind of a huge difference without text, right? So that's a message that I like to give to the people that listen to us. Put a call for action with your QR codes. You get 80% more scans. Huge.
If we talk about the Chinese version of QRzebra, do you get more information? Because most people will scan through WeChat. So are you able to get their name? Are you able to get their gender? Are you able to get more information?
In theory, yes. If we make that, for example, when people scan, that there's a little pop-up of WeChat that they need to click, right? Then we will get that information. But we don't do that for the moment because that means they need to log in with WeChat when they want to access the HTML5 page. Also, maybe something I like to mention, the short URL, that's a millisecond that you're on that page. You don't see that as a user, right? So you go through that, you go straight to the end result. So when people use a dynamic QR code, they don't stay on that page. They don't see it. It's like they're already on the end page. It's like milliseconds, right, that we track information. So yes, we could do that by, you know, integrating WeChat. For example, one QR code that we made, and that's an interesting one. If you scan with WeChat, we can let you go to a WeChat store. If you scan with Taobao, you go to a Taobao store. Yeah. Or with any other, or if you scan with Douyin, yeah, you also go to the Douyin page. Because all those big ones, they block each other. So when you scan, we also know which kind of browser you're in. We know that you're in WeChat. We know that you're using a normal scanner. We know that you're coming from Taobao. So we can redirect you based on that information. That
you know with which app I'm going to scan, and if you see that I scan with WeChat, you are going to bring me to the WeChat ecosystem or Tencent ecosystem. If it's Alibaba, you are going to bring me to the Alibaba ecosystem. And if you see it's a Google QR code, you may actually send me to more an Android store than an iOS store, for instance.
So that's well, there is two different things. Yeah, definitely yes, Alibaba, Tencent, those two things. Yeah. And then there's the other thing when that's what we call App Store QR codes. When you scan, we send you to the Apple Store or we send you to the Android stores, the Chinese Android stores in this case. So yes, we make different QR codes for different purposes on our platform. You can see there's different tools. Another interesting thing to speak about, for example, is what we call a Wi-Fi QR code. Everybody, when they go to a bar, they ask, can I have the password? Can I have this? Very annoying. Just put a QR code with all the information. You can make it for free on our platform. You scan, and people are on your Wi-Fi. As easy as that. Every phone can right now recognize that in a second, right? In one click, you're on the Wi-Fi. You don't even need to know what's the name of that Wi-Fi, whatever. It's something that is super powerful, super easy, super user-friendly. If I look at bars or hotels or whatever. But things that I don't see too much already happening in reality. Yeah.
So you began already to talk about specific cases. I like to know what are the best cases you have in mind for a use of QR code, successful cases. My understanding of QR code is that there is a different use between China and the rest of the world, and WeChat has made QR code much more popular than in the rest of the world. First thing. Also, you can pay through a QR code in China, which is something which doesn't occur in the West. And second aspect is that we see initiatives before led by WeChat, which failed, like the shake, you know, the shake with the phone, it failed. Basically, the brands tried to interact between the billboard and the phone and asking people to shake, and basically didn't take off, and very few people use it now. So would you mind sharing a couple of a campaign or a specific use of QR code, which has become a bit massive, sizable?
Yes. So very interesting to say, for example, that yes, it's definitely WeChat that made QR codes worldwide big. So that's definitely true. Also, QR codes still give people the freedom to scan or not, right? And it's also very clear when there is a QR code because it's visual. Cases we work on, we also work for bigger brands, like for example, Furla, who made, for example, a 2-year plan for QR codes to integrate in their stores. Another brand that we now work for is Universal Studios of the movies, right? So they came with the problem to us of those multi-URL QR codes. They say, look, we have QR codes in the Philippines, in Hong Kong, in China, in Malaysia. We need a solution where we can, with one QR code, find a solution. So those are the bigger brands that are using our QR codes on a bigger scale, right? So they are absolutely doing cross-boundary and need solutions on that level. So these are the clients that mostly look for kind of solutions that go beyond what most customers or most of our customers would not use, right? So those are.
I'm very interested to understand what can be a 2-year plan for QR codes in shops. What can be a plan on 2 years?
Okay, so for example, with QR codes, you can, let me give a few interesting cases of using QR codes in retail. That might be interesting. For example, a brand that does QR codes not too bad is, for example, Sephora. They have a QR code on every person in the store. You can scan and you go to them. So they already made that kind of integrated. You can put QR codes on the window. You can put QR codes on your products when you ship them, that you give more information. So that's also what I always try to tell to our customers. When you scan, people can see the story of the brand. They can see the story behind the product, of where it's made from, this is kind of interesting information where you are doing branding for free from on your product. You have your product anyway, so why not adding a QR code on it? So another brand, a luxury brand that uses good is, for example, Gucci, or Dior. I don't forgot which one, but when you open the package, it's a QR code, first thing you see. So QR codes could be used in so many different ways in retail by engaging the user, because everybody's on their smartphone anyway all the time. So why not giving them opportunities to catch with something and that they can straight away share to somebody? That's also the powerful thing. I'm in a store, I see something cool, I scan it, I can say, hey, I want to share this on my WeChat, or hey, I want to share it to my friends. So this is also the ways that, for example, bigger brands are trying to think, how can we make whatever is in our store shareable, make it more engaging. On the window could be, for example, you scan, you play a game of Lihaoma, and you win 20% off. And you say, hey, I just won 20% off. Let's enter this store, right? Let's check out what I can get for 20% off, and I become a customer, right? So there is a lot of ways that you can use QR codes in an engaging way. It all depends what you do behind it, and it all depends how you use it in a way where the customer has benefits, yeah, and has engagement, right? Those kind of things is what the customer looks for. And this is the thing where we are kind of, we're not a consulting agency, but of course, working a long time with QR codes made us understood all the different use cases that our brands that we work with are using. And sometimes brands come also with very interesting proposals or come with interesting ideas that we say, hey, that's fun, never thought about it, right? So these are kind of ways that, another way that is, for example, QR codes used a lot in, and you might have seen it in retail, it's on the table, you scan, you order, right? You pay, and they will bring it to you. Or it's, for example, in the high-speed train from Beijing to Shanghai, you scan, you order, you pay, and they know your seat number because every QR code is unique, right? And they will come to you and they will deliver it. So it's not like, hey, please, can I? No. So these kind of processes we will see in the West also, because it makes life more efficient, more better, and people already pay, because that's also the biggest trouble that many brands have, you know. With this kind of way, you can get payments up front. So that's also helping in a country like in Belgium or France, where a waitress costs a lot of money, right? So
you mentioned that the biggest issue with QR code and people who want, or companies who want to use QR code, is the call to action. How have you segmented different call to action? You said one call to action, information. I think everyone gets that. You scan, you get information on the product. You have an IKEA shell you need to build, and you can scan and understand how to build it. Information. You can pay with that, but that's very China specific. Then you can scan and play a game. Have you segmented in different call to actions, and would you have a comprehensive view on what can be done in different segments?
So, for example, call for action is important in any situation. It's not something that goes along with whatever. Of course, if people have a need or whatever, they will scan, of course, quicker. But a call for action is still the thing that makes people make that decision in their brain and scan a QR code. And that's, like I said, the first thing, the most important thing. How I will cross that bridge. There need to be, like, if I have a store, I always compare it like this. You have a door, yeah? And if there's no sign, enter to come or get a free cocktail or whatever, will you enter that door? You will look at it, but you will probably not enter, right? Or you will, but if it says something that you are interested in, and it looks already very nice, and then there is a door and it has some really nice, good call for action, you will enter, right? So that's the thing, that is the same thing with QR codes. You need to have a nice sign with your door that says, enter this thing. That's the first thing. Then the second thing, of course, once you enter that landing page or whatever people come into, need to be following their interest, and need to be, of course, engaging. When you make a landing page where it's like a website, and I've seen that is not mobile friendly, well, yeah, bad luck then, but that's what everybody does then. They click it away, right? So that they might have scanned then, great, you get them to that point, but you not made them cross the bridge. They didn't give their information, they didn't pay, they didn't do whatever. So that's the next thing, yeah? So whatever is behind your QR code needs to be also user-friendly. So it's a whole flow. QR code is just the door. To make people enter is one thing, to keep them staying there and consuming is another thing, right? So that's the thing where it needs to go hand in hand and be be user-friendly. It's not only the design or the call for action that is important, it's also important what is the size of the QR code. If you put it on the back of your packaging, who will look there? Nobody. It needs to be on the top right where you open and where you see something. So that's also very important. It needs to be a nice design QR code. So it doesn't look like a barcode, but something that you think like, hey, this is something where I can get some benefit again from, right? So it's all about understanding those things. The size, the colors of the QR code, the call for action, all this in together will make you enter. When people, I'm an architect, design a building, we make the gate and everything very, you know, interesting. So when people look at that thing, they walk in through it without knowing that they're entering the store. And one of the best buildings in that is in Paris, Centre Pompidou. When you enter Centre Pompidou, you're entering that building without realizing that you just entered it, right? It's made in such a smart way. So that's the same thing with your QR code. You need to make it in such a nice designed way, smart way, that it's very easy to enter. Then after that, of course, it's about doing the next steps with your consumer. Of course, QR codes are used in very different ways, like you mentioned, retail, but also we get a lot of customers who come from education, who want to put QR codes in education. There's different levels and needs for QR codes. We also have QR codes on business cards. You scan, I have all your contact information in one click. In China, you might say people will connect with WeChat, but you know, you might not want to give all your WeChat confirmation to everybody, but you might want to give your email and all these kind of things. And business cards, they end up on your desk. You probably have a lot of them yourself. Yeah, they are there, but if you have it on your phone again, it just makes it easier. I just look you up and I find you. So this is also one of our major customers come for that, only for that, right? For just from their business cards. So it's so diverse. And also the customers that come to QR codes, it's so diverse that it's something that people think like, yeah, QR code, it was there 10 years ago. It never took really off. Is it still something big? Well, I will say the main reason that it changed in the West is because you don't need an app anymore to scan a QR code. With an iPhone, you just point your camera. If you put it in your settings, of course, you put your camera in and it will say what kind of QR code is there. A Wi-Fi QR code, a URL, an SMS, whatever it is, right? So this is also the thing where Apple understood from studying China, QR codes are a very powerful thing. We need to get that in our system, right? So that's also something I realized, and that's why I do believe that QR codes in 2019 are taking off like hell. We can see that even in America, one of our biggest markets is for us the United States, yeah, next to China.
Okay. Could you share about the US market? Because the US market is not WeChat dominated like it is in China. And my understanding is that the reason why QR code is so popular in China is because of WeChat, which Facebook has not developed that much. I mean, they are not developed QR code that much. So could you share about how it's working in the US? Is it, what app do they use to scan and how people use it?
Very good question. So if we look at the different places in the world, you have China, you have Southeast Asia, and you have the US. And US, I can say it's almost our biggest market, right? So Europe is a little bit behind. You see some countries coming, but the US is definitely the trendsetter, right? Now in the West, I would say. In the US, many people struggle with it. Yeah, some people download apps they don't really understand. Some understand already they can scan it with their smartphone without downloading an app, right? So it's something where we get really funny questions about QR codes and where we sometimes think like, well, yes, it's a very new product in the US, but of course, people also understand the business opportunity with it and the lead generation they can get through it. So it's going pretty quick. I must say, it's one of those markets where people are very familiar with a SaaS, yeah, service as a software. I need it right now. I'm gonna buy it. Yeah, that's also the spirit of if you're in the United States, where in the rest of the world, people are a little bit like, yeah, do I need it? Can I not get it for free somewhere? Right? That's that's a different mentality with the United States and the rest of the world. This is the thing where I feel the United States is now becoming a trendsetter in the West, and that's why it also will come worldwide. That's I'm sure about. If China is doing it and the United States is doing it, then the rest of the world, it's just a matter of time before they follow too. So that's also when I came back now to Brussels, because I'm calling you from Brussels. I start to see QR codes more and more on the window of a business. Like you can scan, you can understand if the business is closed. Maybe it brings them to their e-commerce. So it's in newspapers. I can see it even in the paving. Like you scan, you can see the history of the street. So QR codes are still becoming more and more used also in Europe, but it still takes a little bit more longer time here for people to really take it with their both hands and get it to the next level. Right? That's the thing that I also can say. Yeah.
What apps do people use in Europe and in the US to scan?
Well, they use all those millions of apps that you can find on the App Store. I think there must be over 60 different scanning apps. They don't use social media to scan. So they don't use Facebook, they don't use WhatsApp, because with WhatsApp you cannot do that. You can only scan to log in, but you cannot do anything else with it. So Facebook, they still don't understand it, but that's how it is. So people use all those kind of mini apps from that are not even famous, you know, that are just some small developers who made it.
Which one is the most used?
The app that I always and there is no name to say that, it's called QR Reader without ads. That's the name of the app on Google Play and iPhone. It's called, because that's the other thing, it's mostly for free, but there's ads in between, right? When my customers ask me that, then I say use that one because it's really great, really well designed, but it's not a branded app, right? It's just an but again, you don't need an app to scan a QR code. You can use it with Android as iPhone. Just point your camera
on the phone, right? On the video, the camera, sorry.
Yeah, you put on photo and then you point it to a QR code. With iPhone, it works great. You know, it's
I
like,
know that.
why would you need an app? And Android, it works great too with the latest Androids. But sometimes in the settings with Android, you need to say, please allow me that my photo can also recognize QR codes. So Android is a little bit, they were in fact the one that did it before iPhone, but iPhone did it well. Yeah, they integrated in a way that it's super useful. I think most iPhone users by now start to realize that they can scan like this.
So you're not based in Brussels and you have been in China for a long time. One of the
I'm not based in Brussels. I'm here just for 2 months working from here. It's too hot in Beijing. But I'm still based in Beijing, yes.
Okay. So you're in between Europe and China, and one of the very dynamic sector between China and Europe is tourism, where the Chinese tourists is actually changing the places. They have to put the description in Chinese. They have to adapt to WeChat and even WeChat payments. So you have all those business which actually support the transformation of those museums, hotels, parks,
right,
toward being China compatible and WeChat compatible and receive payment from WeChat. And I feel that QR code would be a solution to so many things. Translation. Also the audio, the video. Are you seeing something happening, or it's still an anecdote, something very small?
Well, there is, I think, a hole in the market. I knew an Italian who was helping restaurants to translate their menus in Chinese, and that I guess he also added a QR code on the menu. Unfortunately, he stopped his business. But it was a really good concept because, of course, it was helping Chinese consumers to scan and read the menu in Chinese. So there are millions of ways that this could help in a very simple way for businesses to be a solution. But I guess it will take a long time for most European businesses to come to that level. Maybe some corporate businesses might enhance it and use it quicker. But I think most smaller businesses will take some time. On the other hand, what I do see now, for example, in Belgium, I can pay with QR codes right now too. That's something new. It's called Payconic. Okay. They are trying to scale over Europe. You scan a QR code and you just input your codes and you pay like the same way that it works with WeChat. So this kind of businesses are also developing in Europe little by little. Like I say, I hope it's going to be a global approach all over Europe. But I think mostly it works by country, and if you go to a different country, you need to use already a new app or whatever. So that's also the problem a bit when you're in Europe. There is not one integral approach. Mostly it's like different approaches for different countries, which is of course a pain point when you are a tourist and traveling to Europe. The Euro was one that made it one, but if it comes to software, it's still on some levels, not always. Or if it comes to payment, it's not always unified in the digital way.
Yeah, it's the issue, and WeChat made it so much more simple. WeChat and Alipay for China. We have still 10 minutes for the last 10 questions. We already sent to you before, so you already know them.
Right.
What books inspired you most in your entrepreneur journey?
Okay, the different books, but one book that I maybe like to talk about is, for example, called Cashvertising. Cashvertising is a book that helps you to understand how to sell, right? There are many other books that can help you how to sell. It's a book that every employee in my office that is in sales or marketing needs to read. What is the psychology of sales? And then the interesting thing about this book, it's not rocket science. It's not, there are very interesting other books that talk about sales, like the sales accelerator formula, which is also a very good book. But this book, Cashvertising, helps people to understand the psychology and applicable ways of doing it, because reading about how to sell and doing marketing is one thing, doing it is another thing, right? And that's something that this book helps you to understand how to do it in the end. And that's, I think, one of the books that I found pretty interesting, because I'm very interested in the psychology of people and to see how will they act when they do this or when they see that, right? And that book kind of works a bit around that.
Yeah, that makes me want to buy it. What do you
Yeah.
read to stay up to date about China?
Well, I don't read too many books about China. Because China is so diverse where you can find information. It could be on LinkedIn. I read some articles. It could be, I mostly will say social media, right? That's the first thing. It could be on Douyin that I see something interesting new. There are so many new ways to get information today about China that not only books, right? So, and if you're very busy as an entrepreneur, you don't always have the luxury to read books. So I try to get some snippets out of different things and trying to see how I can using those things in my business or
So
understanding.
LinkedIn would be the primary source of information. You're not the first one to say that, actually. And I'm very surprised how LinkedIn evolved now. It's like a media, and people get information from LinkedIn. I believe it's because Facebook and Google are forbidden, so people go to LinkedIn to get information in China.
Well, there are many people in China using LinkedIn, of course, as a way to express themselves to the rest of the world. And it's still a very interesting professional platform. It didn't even it's there's now more and more users on it. It still tries to be a platform for professionals, and that's, I think, what's the power of LinkedIn. When you use it and you're connected to the right people, there's a lot of interesting things and opinions to read. And I think that's also something that people look for, right? It's not only reading an article, it's maybe having somebody having a good opinion about an article and then say, hey, this is worth to read now, because I have only 24 hours in a day, right? So I need to pick my stuff quickly, and if this person says that is an interesting article, let's have a look at it, right? So LinkedIn is a very good helpful tool for that, for quick getting information that might be important for you. Of course, WeChat too. WeChat groups are still interesting if you're in the right groups. There are many good groups, professional groups, where you can get very interesting information out.
Very Chinese way, actually. You need Guanxi to go to the Chinese group of WeChat. It looks like it's more close and more mysterious to get into the groups. You talk about 24 hours in a day. So what productivity tool do you use to make it more productive, to make the day more productive?
Okay, let me make some good advertisement. I love Trello myself for the simple reason. It's a place where you can put cards, you can make different boards for different kind of people. I can manage my company through Trello on my mobile phone, right, from anywhere I am. It's a place where I even manage my personal life. I put things I need to remember, all this kind of stuff. Everything I don't need, everything that I want to put out of my head, but I think it's important, I put it on Trello. I make a little card of it, say this information. I can make action points. I know where my developers are working on. I know what's going wrong with them. So Trello is not blocked in China. It's free, right? So that's also cool. And it's a very easy, simple system that you can customize to your own needs. I know there's many different people using different platforms on these kind of things for workflows, but for my size of business and for the people I work with, it works really good. Yeah, it's a platform that really helps us a lot in doing daily things. That's also what I tell my employees. if you have some problem, some case, you went through a whole thing, put it on Trello, write it down, because next time you're going to come to that same problem, you go to Trello, you find it back, and you know the flow again, right? Because, yeah, like for example, WeChat, so many things you need to remember when you have an official account or all this kind of stuff, and you've been through the whole mess and you did it once, and now it's nicely recorded on WeChat. Next time it will take us 10 minutes, what took us before 2 hours, right? So it's something. Therefore, I do really like Trello as a productivity.
Yeah, Trello is a good tool and it works in China. We use also Teamvision, which is the equivalent of Trello, a copy of Trello in China, which got acquired by Alibaba. I heard about that a few days ago, actually. What if you had extra time? What would be the third company you would manage?
Well, I'm an architect, so I always very interested in 3D printing, and it's something that I already have been thinking of something new that I had in my mind. And maybe one of the concepts that I have in my mind is maybe building once a city on the ocean, right? I still think it's a very interesting thing to be on the ocean. Everybody wants to go to Mars, but I think the ocean is a much more interesting place where you can, you know, have a floating city depending on the temperature, whatever you need. You can move it. It's a universal place, the ocean, right? Right now, we only use it for going from point A to point B with cargo, but or for leisure. But I think there can be much more done. I also see that in the level of, for example, all climate change, all those countries that will disappear, all those people that need to find a place to go to. No countries want them. Nobody wants you, right? So why not make a city on the ocean where people could live temporarily, have an education, and go back to wherever they come from, or maybe stay there, right? Something like that. I see, as an architect, I love thinking big. I love thinking with all kind of things. But as an architect, we always say, heads in the clouds, feet in the mud, yeah? And that means, that's the same when I run now QRzebra. You can dream of this, you can dream of that. But in the end of the day, you need to be hands-on, you need to realize what's going on, and quickly adapt to your situation. Yeah. What's
the most surprising experience you had in China so far?
Oh, I can write 2 books about entrepreneurship in China already. Yeah, I'm sure. This is I've been to so many things where you can get to a wall, and I think by now being in that situation, also working with Chinese people, it's a place where people say no. We cannot do it. It's blocked, right? Blocks. And then you need to think, how can we go over the wall, under the wall, or whatever? But we need to go through that thing, right? And this is being an entrepreneur in China makes you much more sharper, much more quicker, and you need to be very innovative, because you deal with situations where you think like, Christ, how can this be? But it is true. You're in it, and you need to deal with it. Yeah. So it's I've been through all kind of things, from financial miseries to God knows what. I have been through the whole process of being an entrepreneur, but I also believe that's part of being an entrepreneur, and also believe that makes you a better entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, what people need to know is that the banks don't finance any small company or medium-sized company, and even actually some big companies, banks don't finance them in China.
Well, let's people always talk when they talk about startups, it's about investment and Series A and Series B, and I always tell people, don't go for investment, right? Don't do it. Just go your own company, try to grow it. Maybe in the beginning it goes slower.
Go for clients.
Go for clients, go for revenue. Because, in the end of the day, look, I'm a company who is now selling in 89 countries. We're doing pretty good, right? We have big brands on board and everything. Even then, to get investment, it's not easy. Investors will say how much revenue you have. They will look at all this kind of stuff. And based on that, and based on your team and this and this and this, no, don't be busy with it. Don't spend your time on investors. When you're really good, they will come to you. Don't worry about it, right? Be focused on getting clients and customers. Be focused on building a business that runs, that people need. And maybe I know people, a French guy that I know who made a small angel investment in my company, who made a whole company, and that's why also I choose him as an angel investor. He made a whole company and he sold it in China. And he did it with 0 investment. So it's possible, right? It's not easy, but trying to get investment isn't neither easy, right? It's not. So I would say to most entrepreneurs, try to build a good product. And I know you will need a little bit money from somewhere, but try to focus on really making a good product and a great added value for your customers. If you have that, all the rest will come on its way, right?
The last two questions actually are two sides of the same question. One of the way for us as a research and consulting company to understand what's going to change a business, an environment, and to see the weak signals before it becomes big is to look at unexpected success and unexpected failure. For instance, an unexpected failure 10 years ago would have been Carrefour. We wouldn't expect them to leave the country. And unexpected success would be C-char. Hey, tea, how can you sell tea such expensive price in China and grow fast and be so successful? So what would be for you an unexpected success and unexpected failure you have witnessed over your years in China?
Right. So an unexpected success was, to my eyes, Nono Muaks with his glasses, because we just did something. Same with QRzebra, we just did it with the idea that this might be, you know, there might be a market fit for it, and those two things went pretty quick and pretty solid. An unexpected failure might be the application for Lihaoma, because when we made the application, we thought, you know, it's going to be easy to get users, we're going to get investment, right? We don't need to focus on revenue. We just need to focus on building an interesting product that people like to be engaged with. That was a mistake. We didn't look too much at the market fit. We didn't focus on revenue. We focused on getting more users and thought, like when you read online, this app gets so many users, they don't even make money, and they get so many investments. That's if you are called Mr. XXX, but you're not Mr. XXX, you are just a small fish in the sea that wants to do something, right? So that was an unexpected failure when we made this app, but doing that pivot was then a successful formula again. Yeah, learning out of my mistake made me realize that, hey, that's the market fit and not the application. I would say that the application would also have a fit, but you needed much more investment, right? And that was one of the elements that was not there at that moment. We didn't get that investment. So that was the thing that made us not enough to make us grow to that level that we wanted to be, right? So,
thank you very much. Congratulations for everything you built. And I think it was very interesting. I think you're in the business QR code, which is going to change how people interact offline and online. I see only this way for businesses like Airbnb, hotels, museums, to create more revenues and to link with other businesses. Still a lot to do, I believe, in the real world to connect people online. So thank you very much for being with us. Congratulations again for everything you did. And I hope you enjoyed the talk, and I hope everyone listening to us enjoyed it as well.
It was a great pleasure to talk to you. And I think, like I say, QR code is just something that starts in the world right now. People still in many countries have no clue how it works. And that's also the prosperity that we have, that we are not only making a business, but we also try to be innovative again with it. QR code is not just a thing. We can be innovative with it and think with new ways of using it. And that's, I think, also the powerful thing that I'm also very happy for. Because when you make a business, it's not only about understanding things, it's also having the luck to be on the right time and the right moment, right? And that's also something that people forget. With QR codes, I'm definitely on the right moment right now. And that's really the great thing that I have today. Yeah. Thank you very much for your call, and I hope everybody that listens to us will enjoy it.
I'm sure they are. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you. Bye-bye.